Hey there and welcome. With the Serpent event going on in cold storage a couple weeks away, I know a lot of people are nervous about being able to actually run the dungeon. I wanted to give a few quick tips here on how to level up / gear your character really quickly, so that way you can be ready for that dungeon. With that, let's get into the video. So the most efficient way that you can gear your character really quickly in order to increase your character stats and increase your DPS, you're going to want to look at primers and psyches. The primers are these things here in the dragon traders that you can find from Mushins or any of the major town settlements. And you're going to be looking specifically at critical primers and accuracy primers. The three stats you're going to want to look for in general are going to be crit rate, crit damage, and accuracy. Accuracy you want about 1,100 for, so you can get that through a variety of ways. And then crit damage, crit rate, you're going to want about 2 to 3k of both in order to run the dungeon, preferably over 3k for crit rate. So far as psyches goes, you're going to want to psyche all of the gear that you feel comfortable psyching in order to get either crit rate, crit damage, or accuracy, or a mixture of them. It's going to be a little difficult to try and get two good stats from a psyche, so I prefer looking for a single stat that you want to increase from any of the sources. So for example, if you look at your weapon, you're looking for either crit rate or crit damage. Both have very good stats, 76 to 175, 98 to 163. For the piece 1 through 4 soul shield psyches, you're looking specifically at crit damage. It is the best stat by far. Comparatively, the piece 5 through 8 has very middling offensive stats, so basically any roll of crit rate or crit damage will do, or you can get the extra health so that way you're not dying as easily because dead men don't deal DPS. You can also look for crit rate from the top 3 accessories. That is going to be for ring, earring, and necklace. And then for the bottom accessories, your bracelet, your gloves, and your belt, you're going to want to look for crit rate and or crit damage. Accuracy is also a good pickup here if you need it. As far as acquiring psyches goes, you can get 2 free psyches per character for either Hey Muujin psyches or Poharan psyches just by completing the weekly quests on each character for defeating 7 of the purple tier dungeons. The easiest one to do here is going to be Bad Bug, and that means if you're running 3 characters that can all clear Bad Bug, you can get up to 6 psyches a week for free by clearing that. These psyches are transferable between characters, so you can take your best character and throw all 6 psyches their way in order to get their gear maxed out the most, if that's something that you can do. The psyches, of course, are available on the market as well. Poharan's, for example, is going for 85, whereas Hey Muujin is going for 118. Comparable ones as well, Festival Soul Shield Psyches, Beluga Soul Shield Psyches. I would not recommend getting these two because they're the same thing as Hey Muujin and Poharan. They're just worth more for whatever reason on the market. And then, of course, you can also get the Honor Mystical and Honor Exalted Psyches as well for similar comparable prices. This also applies to the Soul Shield pieces and the weapon as well. You can also get these from crafting. If you go to your crafting guild, Soul Wardens will be able to craft you the primer bases in order to get the primers, as well as the soul shield psyches. Now, in order to make the honor psyches, you will need material from Mushin's Tower, so make sure that you can clear that on as many characters as possible in order to maximize the amount of psyches you can make for yourself during this time period, if that's something that you think you can do. So Soul Wardens is going to give you the Honor Mystical and Exalted Soul Shield psyches. Forge Keepers will give you the Honor Weapon psyches, and the Radiant Ring will give you the Honor psyches for both your top and bottom accessory gears. It's worth noting that even though the primers for the Soul Shields say 113, they don't actually give 113 unless you're using them on a matching rarity of Soul Shield. So for example, using this 113 crit rate primer on one of my Soul Shield pieces from Brightstone is not going to give 113 crit rate. It's going to give a reduced amount. Whereas using it on one of the Soul Shield pieces from Bloodshade Harbor, since they are both purple tier, means that it will be able to give the full amount of crit rate. This also depends on the piece you're attaching it to. So for example, using the Soul Shield Critical Primer on a Brightstone piece is going to yield between 79 and 96 crit rate extra. If you're trying to go and you're getting a specific stat, let's say, and you get the same stat for every single Psyche and every single Soul Shield piece that you can get, Let's take crit rate as an example. From psyches alone, you will end up with 949 minimum extra crit rate, whereas you'll get a maximum of 1905 extra crit rate. From soul shield primers, the crit rate amount goes from 618 to 663 on a profane Jiangeshi soul shield. For accuracy, you can get between 756 and 1474 from psyches, and you can get between 469 and 504 accuracy from primers. Crit damage is not a stat that you can get from primers, so unfortunately it's going to be missing there, but if you get a crit damage roll on every single psyche possible, you will be able to get between 1129 and 1756 crit damage. I'm throwing up some tables I made to show the base stats that you can get from all the psyches and all the soul shield primers, given that you're using a profane Jiangeshi soul shield. If you have a slightly better soul shield, let's say a Brightstone or Bloodshade Harbor, then you can expect to get slightly better stats from your primers. The other way that you can try to level up your character if you don't want to sink a bunch of psyches into a piece of gear that you think is a bit too low, or if you're just trying to get better gear in general, is to look at the market and maybe try and find some gear that is a good stat roll, but with very low rolls. I like looking at necklaces for this example. If I want to try and find a Siren necklace with 3 slots and crit rate and crit damage, I can find one for 216 gems. Now, that might be a lot for some. I will say that if you compare this to trying to find a legendary tier piece of equipment with crit rate and crit damage, you're going to be paying a lot more, to the tune of 10,000 plus gems. The advantage of getting these is that you can get a middling stat or a low roll stat for very cheap, and then when you upgrade the Siren necklace to Awakened and then again to True, and then if you go beyond and get that to a legendary necklace even, say, every time you upgrade that necklace, it has a chance to increase those stats up to its maximum. This means that you can pick up an accessory for cheap and then try and upgrade it to get better stats if you're feeling lucky. It is not a surefire way, but it is something that you can do in order to get 2 good stats instead of just looking for one really big good stat. I think that getting crit rate and crit damage, for example, on an accessory piece together, even if they're both middling, is better than just getting something like a really good crit rate and then something like block or evasion that's not going to do anything for your DPS. The last thing I want to cover is how to level your character faster. You want to be level 51, 52 in order to do cold storage because you end up negating the damage drop-off that you have at just regular level 50. Anything below level 51 will have significantly reduced damage compared to 51 and above because there's a damage penalty if you're within 3 levels of the boss. So while most people will run their standard daily dungeons and just use up their Hungmoon Blessing that way, if you are trying to maximize your experience gain and you have the time to do so, the better way to do it is to do multi-runs. We're talking about multi-runs of Bad Bug, Poharan, and Chef, whichever one that you can do the best of. All of these dungeons will give significantly increased experience over the blue dungeons that you will be able to clear. And what the top players are doing is they are running multi-runs of Poharan or Chef, or right now Cold Storage Training Base, whatever the best dungeon they can do is, until they're out of Blessing. And then they will go back and run all of the key blue quests. They're all of the faction quests and any other quests that they can get as well. While you won't get the experience for the boss and you won't get the drops from these bosses, you will still be able to pick up the XP from the blue quests that you finish for your dailies. And this way you can get more experience out of every day, and compounding over a week or two, that will make a large difference. Just make sure that you're doing the field bosses first if you want to do this, because you cannot actually complete the blue daily quests without picking up the boss loot, and the boss loot won't drop if you're at 0 Hungmoon Blessing. So what this means is your daily routine, if you're trying to maximize the XP, is go run through all 4 field bosses as fast as possible. This means Lycan, Jiangeshi, the Sajifi, and the fish guy over in the Plogstead. And then you'll probably want to run Mushins once in order to get those rewards, because you're going to want those in order to make your psyches. And then after that, you do multi-runs of Poharan or Chef or Bad Bug, whichever one that you can do the best, until you are out of Blessing. And then once you are out of Blessing, you will go back and do all of the 4 daily quests from the Monkey Pig, Spider, and the Brightstone camps, as well as both faction quests on the map and suspicious rituals when you can. This will make sure that you get a lot more EXP every day than you would otherwise get just running through everything while you still had the blessing to burn through it. So with upgraded pieces, everything psyched out, and a higher level cap, the last thing you want to be looking at is blue books. Now you should be getting 2 selectable blue chests by being able to complete the Serpent's quest for Chef and then also Poharan. If you can't get one of those, or if you didn't do Chef, do try to still get Poharan. Poharan is easy to go through or get carried from, especially with so many people geared up now. Just try to ask for a party to be able to carry you, and be very open with the fact that you need help. I know a lot of people who are willing to help people during their runs if they just ask nicely. So overall, try to grab what blue books you can and use the selectable blue chests that you get from Chef and Poe in order to compensate for whatever you do need from the market still. And then make sure that you're gearing up with psyches, leveling up as best you can, running as many of those quests as possible every day, especially the faction quests. Those will give a lot of experience compared to all of the other quests that you do. And then make sure that you're putting together whatever you can in order to get your stats up to about 3k crit rate, 2k crit damage, and about 750 to 800 AP. These are not hard numbers, and it will vary per class, especially depending on the skill books that you have on hand, but it is something to look towards as a goal. And I promise you that if you do put in the effort to do little pieces here and there every day, you will be able to find yourself in a much better spot come time for cold storage. With all of that, I wish you the best of luck, and hopefully I'll see you in 2 weeks on cold storage runs. Peace.